Hey everyone and welcome. We're diving deep into DBS Bank today, looking at their 2023 annual report.
It's a good one.
Yeah, you requested this one, so I hope we can really pull out some insights for you.
Definitely a lot to unpack here. Always fascinating to see how these major players are navigating the financial landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll hit the highlights like always. Their business segments, how they're doing financially.
What they're saying about the future, those juicy tidbits about shareholder value, dividends, buybacks, all that good stuff.
Right. So let's jump right in. DBS has these three core business areas. You've got institutional banking, consumer banking, and wealth management. Then there's treasury markets.
Yeah, they're kind of like the three pillars of their operations, each one playing a crucial role.
So let's break them down. Institutional banking, that's where they're working with the big fish.
Right, exactly. Think multinational corporations, other financial institutions, even governments. They're providing loans, facilitating international trade, offering all sorts of complex financial solutions.
High-level stuff. So they're the ones in the fancy suits making those big deals.
Pretty much. Then you've got consumer banking and wealth management. That's where they connect with everyday folks and smaller businesses.
Helping them manage their money, grow their savings.
Precisely. Mortgages, loans, investments. The whole 9 yards.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then treasury markets. What's that all about? Sounds a little mysterious.
That's DBS's internal investment arm, you could say. They're managing the bank's own assets, dealing with currencies, interest rates, commodities.
Oh, like a high-stakes financial chess game.
You could say that definitely requires a lot of expertise and strategic thinking.
For sure. Now, one strategy I found interesting was their China plus one approach. What's the thinking there?
It's smart. They're capitalizing on this trend of businesses diversifying their supply chains away from China.
So they're positioning themselves as the go-to bank for companies expanding into other parts of Asia.
Exactly. They're not just reacting, they're anticipating the shift and making sure they're ready to support those businesses.
I see being proactive. And they've also upped their stake in the Shenzhen Rural Commercial Bank, trying to solidify their presence in that region.
Yep. The Greater Bay Area is a huge growth market, and they want a piece of the action.
Makes sense. Now let's talk tech. Digital transformation is a big deal for any bank these days, and DBS seems to be all over it.
Oh, absolutely. They're investing heavily in technology across the board, especially in wealth management transaction services and treasury customer sales.
So streamlining things,
Yeah.
making things easier for customers.
That's a big part of it. But it's also about using data and AI to personalize services, make smarter decisions, and ultimately boost their bottom line.
It's like they're trying to become a tech company that also happens to be a bank.
Kind of. They're definitely pushing the boundaries of what a traditional bank can be.
Now, even with all this innovation, there must be some challenges too, right?
Yeah, integrating their recent acquisitions has been a bit of a hurdle. Bringing different systems and cultures together, it takes time.
Sure. You're talking about City Consumer Taiwan and Lakshmi Vilas Bank in India?
Those are the ones. It's not always a smooth process, but they seem to be managing it well.
Hopefully those acquisitions pay off in the long run. Now, let's get to the good stuff, the financials. First up, record profits. DBS is raking it in.
Yeah, they had a banner year. Total income over SGD, $20 billion. That's a first.
Wow. And net profit up by a huge margin.
26% to be exact, hitting a record SGD $10.3 billion.
So what's driving this financial success? Did they stumble upon a pot of gold?
Not quite. It's a combination of factors. Rising interest rates definitely helped.
Yeah.
As rates climb, banks tend to earn more from their lending activities.
Makes sense. So they were in the right place at the right time, but they also made some smart moves.
Right. Those strategic initiatives we talked about earlier, their focus on growth areas, their digital transformation, it's all paying off.
So they're not just lucky. They're making their own luck.
Exactly. And it's reflected in their dividend, too. They announced a final dividend of 54 cents per share, bringing the full-year dividend to a hefty SGD 1.92.
Not bad at all. That's a significant jump from last year. Shows they're committed to rewarding their shareholders.
Definitely. And they're not stopping there. They've proposed a bonus issue of 1 bonus share for every 10 existing shares. Plus, they're planning to increase the annualized ordinary dividend to SGD 2.16 per share after that bonus issue goes through.
Wow, that's a lot of numbers. But the bottom line is they're taking care of their investors.
Yeah, they're pulling out all the stops to keep those shareholders happy. Buybacks are on the table too, which can further boost shareholder value.
It's like a financial thank you gift. Okay? Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground here. Their business segments, their impressive financial performance, and their dedication to shareholder value.
We've only just scratched the surface, but it's a good overview.
For sure. But what about the future? What does the crystal ball say about DBS's prospects?
Well, they're not resting on their laurels, that's for sure. They're continuing to invest heavily in technology and innovation, exploring the potential of AI and generative AI to boost productivity and efficiency across the board. It's like they're constantly looking for ways to work smarter, not harder.
So even more automation and cutting-edge tech on the horizon.
Yes.
But it's not all about the bottom line, right? They're also emphasizing sustainability, aren't they?
You got it. DBS is walking the walk when it comes to responsible banking and business practices. They're actively involved in initiatives related to climate change, financial inclusion, and community development. It's clear they're aiming to make a positive impact beyond just their financial performance.
So they're not just about profits. They want to be a force for good in the world. But let's be realistic. There are always potential bumps in the road. What are some of the challenges DBS might face moving forward?
Well, the global economic environment is always a factor. Inflationary pressures, potential recessions, those are all wild cards that could impact their performance. And then there's the ever-evolving world of technology. They need to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to digital innovation and cybersecurity, especially as the threats out there become more sophisticated.
It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah.
So they've got this incredible momentum, but they need to stay agile and adaptable.
Exactly. It's all about having a solid foundation, but also being ready to pivot and adjust as needed. Before we move on to the nitty-gritty of their financials, I'd love to hear your initial thoughts. Anything that particularly struck you about DBS so far?
You know what really stands out to me is how DBS isn't just riding the current wave of economic trends. They're actively reshaping their business, embracing technology, and making strategic acquisitions to position themselves for long-term success, even when the tides turn. It's like they're building a financial fortress that can withstand any storm.
I completely agree. That proactive approach is incredibly impressive. Now let's dive into the details of their financial performance, starting with their income statement. So the income statement, it's like a financial story. It tells us how DBS is making money. And what's cool is they have a really diverse range of income streams.
Not just relying on one thing.
Exactly. They've got interest income from loans, investments fees from services like wealth management and transaction banking, even income from trading activities.
Multiple revenue streams. Smart move. Spreads the risk.
Yeah.
Now, what about their balance sheet? What does that tell us?
The balance sheet is like a snapshot of their financial health. It shows us what they own assets and what they owe liabilities.
Okay, so on the asset side, what are their big holdings?
A big chunk is loans and advances, which makes sense. Lending is their core business.
Yeah.
But they've also got a good portion invested in things like government securities and treasury bills.
Those are like their safe bets.
Exactly. Low risk, good for liquidity. Then on the liability side, the bulk of it comes from customer deposits. That's the money people and businesses have entrusted to DBS.
All right, their life savings, business funds. It's a big responsibility.
Absolutely. And they also have borrowings from other banks and debt securities they've issued to raise capital.
Borrowing to lend the heart of banking. But managing that balance is crucial. Now, let's talk about the cash flow statement. What's that all about?
The cash flow statement tracks the actual movement of cash, both coming in and going out. It shows us how they're generating cash from operations, how much they're investing, and how they're financing their activities.
So it's like a financial GPS, tracking the flow of money.
You could say that. And a key takeaway here is that DBS generated a ton of cash from its operations in 2023.
That's a good sign, right?
A very good sign. It means their core business is strong and healthy. Now, a metric investors always love is free cash flow. Have you heard of that one?
Vaguely, but refresh my memory.
So free cash flow is the cash DBS has left over after covering its operating expenses and capital expenditures.
So it's like their leftover cash. What can they do with that?
It gives them options, flexibility. They can use it to reward shareholders through dividends or buybacks. They can invest in growth opportunities, or they can pay down debt.
So it's a sign of financial strength and potential.
Exactly. Now, speaking of rewarding shareholders, let's circle back to those plans for creating shareholder value. Remember those dividends and buybacks we talked about?
Yeah, those sounded pretty sweet.
They are.
Mm.
So the final dividend is 54 cents per share, bringing the full-year dividend to SGD 1.92, a big jump from the previous year.
Shows they're serious about sharing the profits.
And then there's that bonus issue. 1 bonus share for every 10 existing shares. Plus, they're increasing the annualized ordinary dividend to SGD 2.16 per share after the bonus issue.
Okay, so they're really pulling out all the stops to reward their investors.
Exactly. And don't forget about those share buybacks. They can have a similar effect as dividends. reducing the number of shares out there and potentially increasing the value of the remaining shares.
So it's a multi-pronged approach to keeping those shareholders happy. Now, taking all of this into account, what's your overall assessment of DBS's prospects moving forward?
Overall, I'd say DBS is in a very strong position. They've delivered incredible financial results. They have a clear growth strategy, and they're committed to creating shareholder value.
Sounds like they're ticking all the boxes.
They are. Plus, they're embracing trends like digital transformation and sustainability, which are crucial for long-term success.
So they're future-proofing themselves.
Exactly. But of course, there are always challenges. The global economy is unpredictable. Competition is fierce. Technology is constantly evolving. They need to stay agile and adaptable.
Like navigating a financial obstacle course.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they have the skills to stay ahead of the game.
I agree. They've shown incredible resilience, adaptability, and a commitment to innovation, all essential for success in today's financial world. Before we wrap up, is there anything else in the report that you found particularly interesting?
You know what struck me? Their focus on financial inclusion. It's not something you always see highlighted in these reports, but it shows a different side of DBS, a commitment to something bigger than just profits.
You're right. That's a really important aspect of their story. They're making a conscious effort to make banking services more accessible to a wider range of customers, including those who are often overlooked by traditional financial institutions.
So they're trying to bridge the gap between the haves and have-nots.
Precisely. And they're doing it through what they call a phygital approach, blending their digital capabilities with the human touch of their staff.
Phygital. That's a new one. So it's like a hybrid approach.
Exactly. It's about meeting people where they are, both literally and figuratively, to help them manage their finances effectively.
It's really cool to see them taking that extra step.
Yeah, it's not just about making money. It's about making a positive impact.
Definitely. So can you give us an example of how they're actually doing this phygital thing in action?
Sure. One thing they're doing is partnering with schools. Like, they've teamed up with the Ministry of Education in Singapore to put digital payment systems in over 330 schools.
So kids can pay for stuff with their watches or cards.
Exactly. It's convenient, safe. But here's the really cool part. They're also using this program to give meal subsidies to students in need.
Wow, that's awesome. Using tech to help those who need it most.
And they're also working with their subsidiary POSB, which is really focused on local communities, to reach out to groups like migrant workers. They're doing these digital literacy workshops, teaching them how to use online banking, manage their money.
Empowering them with financial knowledge.
That's the key. It's not just about giving them access, it's about giving them the skills to use it wisely.
I love that. It's true financial inclusion, making sure everyone has a seat at the table.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that financial services can be a pathway to a better life.
For sure.
Well,
Well, DBS is definitely setting a good example here, showing that you can be a successful business and still make a real difference in the world.
I agree. It's a powerful message. Hopefully other companies will follow suit.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything. Their business financials, their vision for the future. It's been a really interesting deep dive.
A lot to take in, but that's what these reports are all about. Peeling back the layers and really understanding what makes a company tick.
And DBS is definitely ticking along nicely. They're a force to be reckoned with, but always evolving, adapting to the changing world.
Always looking ahead, which is essential in today's fast-paced environment.
So if our listener wants to learn more, where should they go?
The full annual report is definitely worth a read. Lots of great info in there.
All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into DBS Bank's 2023 annual report. Hope you found it insightful.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
And stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of business and finance.